and welcome to a new episode of the Bobbles and Berries Podcast. If you're new here, my name is Ode and I am coming to you from Edinburgh in Scotland. And if you are a returning viewer, then welcome back. Thank you for being back. Thank you for your patience. I know it's once again been a very long time since my last episode. But we're here today. So thank you for your patience. Work has just been incredibly busy. There's not really any other reason why I haven't recorded before. It's just work has been insanely busy. So, let's just get straight into it. This is, as always, going to be a normal podcast episode with finished objects. I've got 2. Works in progress, I've got 3. And I've got a fair amount of acquisitions. And I will also be chatting at the end about what I've been reading since my last episode. I started doing that kind of book segment in my last episode, and a lot of you seem to enjoy it quite a bit, so I'll just continue doing that. I do have one sewing item, but I'm not going to show it today because I'm working on other things, and I just figured that I'll just save it all for a future podcast episode, and also because I feel like this one might be a bit long. So yeah, let's get started. So I'm going to start with what I'm wearing, which is also my first finished object, which you may recognize as my Bookclub cardigan. I'm going to do the weird standing up thing so you can look at it, and then I'll give you all the details because I talked about it at length in my previous podcast. And yeah, there's lots to say about it. So there you go. So this is what it looks like. And yeah, it is finished, as you can see. I finished it a while ago now. I don't think I had a lot left to do after my last episode. I can't remember exactly where I was at. But yeah, it's been finished for quite a while. It's been worn very often. I really, really love it. It's very comfortable. It's that nice, cozy, oversized cardigan that's great right now because it has been getting really cold the past week or so, but I feel like up until now it was cold enough that I needed something, but sometimes a bit too warm for a full jumper. So this cardigan has actually been really nice for that, and I can just take it on and off, as I please, as I feel the need to. So yeah, it's been wonderful, and it's I guess I have this cardigan, and then I have an April cardigan by Petite knit that I knit a while ago, which I don't tend to wear at home so much. It's more like I wear when I go out, just because it's a bit more fitted. It's beautiful, but it's not as comfy and cozy. So at home, I've been wearing this one a lot. And then I have that jacket that I made by Florence of Handmade by Florence, and the name escapes me just now. But again, that's the jacket. It's got mohair and things, and so it's not it's a bit of a fancier piece in my wardrobe, I guess, for me, and so I don't wear it at home so much. So I have this one, which I've been wearing at home a lot, while I was working and all that, and it's telling me that I need to make more cardigans, basically. I don't have really a cardigans on my needles at the moment, you will see, but it is definitely something that I want to make more of in the future, and I have lots of yarns and lots of plans for that, so I'm looking forward to that. Anyway, let's talk about the Bookclub cardigan because there's a lot to say. I'm just going to start with the yarns. I'm looking to the side because I have my notes. So the yarn that I used is Jameson & Smith Shetland Heritage Naturals. It's a fingering weight. I held it double to get a DK, and I got gauge, so that was fine. I used the shade Fawn. I think their natural heritage line is one that is undyed, so I chose the shade Fawn, and I bought 2 500 grams cone. I knew that one was not going to be enough, so I bought 2. I have lots of yarn left over. I used 525 grams, so I barely I used just over the yarn that I had. But what was really nice as well is because I had 2 cones, I could just pull a strand of yarn from each and knit that way, and just directly from the cone, didn't have to wind the yarn in balls or anything like that. So that was very convenient. And now I have, I guess 475 grams of that yarn, which is a decent amount left. It may be not enough for a garment unless I hold it with mohair maybe or something like that, but it would be really nice probably for a shawl. I could see myself making a really nice shawl in that color. So yeah. So that's for the yarn. It's lovely yarn. I love it. I've used Shetland, Jameson and Smith and Shetland wool many times in the past. It's really lovely to knit with. It's very soft in my opinion, and I think most people find it soft, even people who have who are more sensitive to wool than I am. So yeah, I love it. I just would recommend it any day. I knitted size 3, which is the size recommended in the pattern for my bust measurement. I think I got the positive ease and everything that you're supposed to get. I haven't really measured it once I finished it to compare to the measurement in the pattern, but I'm happy with the fit. So yeah, let me see now, because I made a lot of modification. Oh yes, I will just one note on yarn quantities if you are going to knit this. And I think if you watch a bunch of podcasts, a lot of people have knitted this cardigan. There was a knit along for it in, I think, July or something that ended in early August, and there has been a lot of chat about yarn quantity, with everyone pretty much finding that what the pattern recommends is a bit tight. Some people have had just enough, some people have had to order more yarn. So yeah, just keep that in mind if you're gonna make one. Maybe add a bit more yarn, because what happened for me is that I knitted it to I think pretty much my size, or like what the pattern recommended. I didn't make the sleeves much longer. If anything, I tend to shorten the sleeves a bit because my arms are kind of short. I didn't make it overly cropped or overly long, so I think in terms of length, it was kind of what the pattern recommended. I didn't do the pockets, so I didn't use yarn for that. And I used I was really at the limit of what was recommended for my size. So if I made the pockets and had just the amount of yarn that I was supposed to have, I would not have had enough. So yeah, just keep it in mind if you're going to use this pattern. Thankfully, a lot of people have knitted this cardigan, and so that means there's a lot of project pages on Ravelry about it, and so you can easily look for someone else who's knitted in your size and compare like the different people and how much yarn they used and the type of yarn that they used, and that should help you estimate how much yarn you actually need. It looks like what's recommended in the pattern is a bit tight. Like there's a bit of a risk to play yarn chicken and lose. So yeah, just putting it out there. Yeah. Regarding the modifications that I made, so like I said, the pattern has pockets here. I didn't do the pockets. I didn't really feel like it. I like it without the pockets, and I was worried that the pockets would just add bulk, and so yeah, I don't know if it would have or not. I haven't heard anyone saying that it does, but I like it without the pocket. So that's my first modification. Another modification that I made is the cables. If you can see, maybe here, how can I show you? The cable cross outwards, and the back is the same, so they're symmetrical, whereas in the pattern they all go in the same direction. But I prefer, when I started knitting it, I was in the tester pool at the time, although I didn't finish the test knit on time, but there was an error, I think, in the pattern that where the first time it told you to cross symmetrically, and then the rest of the time to just go in the same direction. So anyway, I made that mistake, and I decided to carry on and mirror all the cables, and I like it better. It doesn't make a massive difference, honestly, especially once the garment is finished. It's quite busy with all the cables, so it's not like you don't really necessarily notice which way the cables cross at the point of the diamonds there, but I like it better that way. And I also did for the sleeves, so the sleeve it crosses towards the back here, and then how can I show you, towards the back here. So yeah, this is one modification that I made. It's very easy to make. It's one cable crossing, one row, and you just change the way you cross it. It's not really a big deal. It's just to mirror things. I like the symmetry that way. Ribbing, regarding the ribbing, I made the ribbing a little bit longer than what it recommended. I don't remember by how much, but yeah, just a bit. The reason I did that is because I was getting towards the end of the body, and to get, hold on, can I maybe lift it and then talk to you so you can see my face when I speak? I was getting towards the end of the body, and to get the length that I wanted, I either had to keep going with the cable and stop at a weird place in the cable, or I could lengthen the ribbing. And the reason I chose to do that is because I didn't want to end in a weird place in the diamond, and my idea was that either I had to do a full diamond repeat or half a diamond repeat, and even doing just half would have brought it too long. I just needed a couple, like 2, 3, maybe 4 rows of length to get the length that I wanted. So I decided to put this into the ribbing instead, and I like it. I think I do find the ribbing in the pattern maybe a bit too thin for my preference. I mean, it's really up to you, but yeah. And then I think I mirrored that on the sleeves. I did the same depth of rib as for the body. So it's easy. It's an easy modification just to get the length that you want. It's not, yeah, it's really just making it fit my body and my preferences. So you do the same like everybody. I don't know. I know some people knit like specifically to pattern, including the length of the body and the length of the sleeves. I barely ever look at that. I just knitted to, I look at how much the cuff and the hem are gonna be per as the pattern, like according to the pattern. And then I knit the sleeves and the bodies until I reach the length that I want minus the depth of the cuff or the hem. So I never really looked at the length, like the suggested length of the sleeves of the body. Oftentimes also because, like I said, I have quite short arms, so I have shorter arms, I guess, than the standard ratio that is used for pattern design. So if I knit the sleeves to the recommended length, they're always too long. So yeah, so I don't really look at what the pattern suggests, but yeah. So this is what I did. Another modification, I'm telling you, there's a lot. Another modification is the sleeve sizes, and I think I touched on that in my last episode. So it's a drop shoulder, right? So you do the back, then you do the 2 fronts, you join under the arm, you knit the body back and forth in one piece, and then at the armhole you pick up stitches, and then you knit your sleeve. And the amount of stitches that I had to pick up for my size was so incredibly small. It was really bunchy, even like to the point that it would not have blocked out. And the sleeves was really tight, which I don't like the look of a tight sleeve on an oversized jumper or cardigan. I think it's just like, I don't personally like it. And I think once again, it is something that a lot of people who have made the cardigan in the past or who participated in the knit along also mentioned that the sleeves were quite tight and to go up a size, which means that instead of picking up the number of stitches recommended for your size in the pattern, you just pick up more stitches, you go up a size or 2 or whatever. So like I said, I knit it in size 3, but I did the sleeves in size 6. And I did, the size 6 has a lot more decrease round. Basically the size 3 and the size 6 like get you at the cuff with pretty much the same amount of stitches. I think there's maybe a 2 stitch difference. So it's not like I was gonna have a good sleeve but a really big cuff. It's not the case. The cuffs were pretty much the same. So there was just a lot more decreases, but that was already included in the pattern. It's not something that I had to figure out. So that was very easy, and I'm really pleased that I did that because it fits so much better and the proportions of the whole thing are so much better in my opinion. So yeah, something to keep in mind as well when you knit that, because a lot of people have found that the sleeves are really tight. So, if that's not something that you want, just go up a size. Yeah. And then the final modification that I made, which I don't know if it's really a modification or not, is I knit the button band following. It's a double knitted bottom band where you pick up at one end and then you just do it all the way around to the other end. It takes forever. I will say that it takes quite a while. I really don't mind it. I really enjoy that part of the process, that part of the knitting. I really enjoy making double knit bottom band, and I really, really love the finished look. It's really clean and sturdy. So I don't mind, but yes, it does take time. Just, it's not something that you're going to whip up in an evening. But yeah, I did it following the tutorial of, once again, Florence of Handmade by Florence, because yes, I remember now the jacket that I was talking about before, the fennel seed jacket. It has a double knit button band, and I found her tutorials and her instructions very, very clear, and almost and the finishing touches almost better, because from what I remember in the Bookclub Cardigan, so the Sari Nordlund pattern, she tells you at the end to just cast on using, I think, something like the long tail cast on or something, and then bind off just in pattern, which I think it doesn't, I don't know, I feel like it wouldn't look too nice, as opposed to doing a nice tubular cast on and bind off and all that. So yeah, so I actually used Florence's tutorials. Actually, now that I think of it, I think I used the tutorials for the buttonholes of her step-by-step cardigan, because it's one that where she shows you how you do it without having to break the yarn in the buttonholes, because a lot of the time if you do a double knit button band with buttonholes, you have to break the yarn to make a buttonhole at some point. But she showed a tutorial on how to do that without breaking the yarn, and it worked really well. So I would highly, I'll put the link to her tutorial in the description, because it's really good, and really clear and really easy to follow. So yeah, so I think that's more or less what I have to say for this. The buttons that I used are those very basic coconut buttons. They're fine. I used the dark side out, and then the light is on the inside. I didn't really have any other buttons that I thought fitted the garment or that I liked. I am going to York at the beginning of December, and I've done a bit of research, and there seems to be quite a nice button shop there. So I definitely intend to go, and maybe if I find nicer buttons that I like better, I will get it. But for now, I'm really happy with that, and yeah, it's fine. It works great. I thought maybe at first that I would put some silvery or brass buttons, but I didn't have any, and I kind of like the dark brown anyway. So yeah, very happy with that. And yeah, I don't know if there's anything that I want to say. I've talked a lot already about this cardigan, and I talked a lot about it in my last episode as well. I guess maybe just a note on how I blocked it, because especially how I blocked the sleeves, because I needed to stretch out the sleeves just to open up the cables. But if you lay it flat, then you can't really open up that cable, because you're going to have the fold here of your sleeve laying flat, so it's going to be kind of awkward to really open up that cable and make it nice and smooth and beautiful and all that. So what I did is that I took 2 towels, they're just bath towels, I rolled them, I wrapped them in cling film, and then I slid them into the sleeves like a sausage basically, and I rolled them to a size that was a bit bigger than my arm, so that the sleeves would be, a bit bigger than my arms. And yeah, it worked really well. The reason I wrapped them in cling film is so that the towels wouldn't get wet, because otherwise it would take forever to dry. And yeah, it worked quite well. I know some people, I think I mentioned it the last time, and some people also mentioned using pool noodles, which I'm sure would work great as well. I was just a bit concerned that pool noodles were not thick enough for what I wanted here, but it's definitely something to look into. Also, I don't know where I would store pool noodles. I don't really have storage space, and for something that I would use twice a year. So yeah, but it's definitely an option if that's something that you have, or if you have the storage space for it, or any of that. So yeah, I think I'm going to stop there because I've talked so much about this cardigan. But yeah, I mean, conclusion, I really love it. Oh, I just remembered something actually. I think the last time I said I wasn't really sure about what needle size to use for the button band, because the pattern recommended using the same as the body. So I knit this on 4mm, 4mm needles. But then in the previous item that I made with the double knit button band suggested going down a needle size. And so I wasn't really sure. In the end, I ended up going with the 4mm needles, and it works just fine. If I'd gone to 3.5, I think it would have worked just as well. And recently someone asked about it, so I went and checked the pattern again, and the pattern says to use 3mm. So I don't know if it's a notification that's more recent. I don't know if for me 3mm would have been good. I fear that it may have been a bit too tight, but it might also depend on the yarn that you use. So yeah, I don't know if there's like a magic recipe. I guess the best thing you can do is like block your cardigan, make a small swatch of your button band and block it and see how it sits, like how the gauge compare. But yeah, 4mm worked for me. It really did. So I didn't mind, but I think, yeah, and if I were to knit it again, or I think maybe in the future, I would probably just go down at least half a needle size, if not a full needle size, depending on the yarn and the texture and the fabric and all that. So yeah, something to keep in mind. But yeah, all right, I think that's it. That's it about the book club cardigan. Let's move on to the next finished object, my second finished object. I'm drinking some nice ginger tea, which is very, very lovely. All right, let me change. Just gonna switch over to the Good Ravelry page. All right, so my next finished object is a scarf. I think I was knitting on it the last time as well. And this is the, I have mohair and gloss, and that does not do well together. This is the Bakker scarf, or I'm sure I'm pronouncing it wrong, by Fibertales, and it is quite big, so it's folded in half right now. But yeah, I'm gonna show you. And yeah, it is massive, and I love it. I think I was knitting on it the last time. So the yarn that I used is the exact yarn recommended in the pattern in the exact colors that the designer used, which is something that I've never done before. I have sometimes used the same yarn, but not usually in the same color. But I really like the color. It looks a bit overexposed, I guess, on the screen, just it's quite sunny, but it's like a nice dark cool green, and I love it. And so I've said that a million times, I love it. Do you get it? I really love it. The yarn that I used is Lettlopi unspun in the shade Frost Grass. 2021 is the shade number, and then one strand as well, like held double with one strand of Isager silk mohair in the shade Olive 68, which is a much warmer green, like it's like a real warm olive green, and I think it makes a really nice fabric, and it's really lovely and a really nice color as well, and it's really lovely. It's really soft. So I've never worked with either of those yarns before. I used to be quite sensitive to mohair. I don't think I am that much anymore, but I would say that of the mohair that I've used recently, Isager is definitely the softest. It's also quite nice because it doesn't shed like crazy, so it's not like you're knitting and then you're covered in mohair, which I know some of the mohair do. I knit a bit over the summer with Knitting for Olive, and it's beautiful, but oh my goodness, it sheds like it's mad. Isager doesn't shed that much, so I don't know if it's all of the Isager mohair or if it's this specific color because the dye does something, I don't know, but in this case it was quite nice. And then the Lettlopi, again, it was my first time knitting with it, and I know a lot of people says it smells very strong. I didn't really find that, but also I like this woolly, sheepy smell of wool, and I'm not too sensitive to it. And a lot of people say it's also quite itchy, which I think on its own, I get it. I think with the mohair, it is not that itchy, but also I wouldn't wear it like really stuck to like really, really tight to my skin. I think for a scarf, it's great because it's around you, but it's not like pressed against your skin. And yeah, I haven't worn it out yet because it hasn't been cold enough, but I am so looking forward to the cold weather and just like, oh, it's so good. It's gonna be so warm and it's so beautiful. And yeah, I don't really have much to say about it because I've knit Fibertale patterns before, and they're just so nice and so clear and so easy, but also really interesting and engaging, and I've never had any issues. So yeah, it was a really fun project. So the way it works is that you start at one tip. See, I can show you and have it wrapped around my neck. How wonderful is that? So you start at one tip, it's garter stitch, and so you go and do like, you knit in garter stitch basically, and then you have like markers for the braids, which are just, while you knit the shawl, it's just normal like knit stitches. And but if you look, there's like a bit of a wave effect. It's not, the braids are not just straight line the whole way. So you do that by playing around with increases and decreases. And then once you reach the end of, like the other end of a braid, then you unravel all those stitches that were made in between the stitch markers, like that were set aside for the braid. You unravel them all and then you reknit them with a crochet hook to make this braid, and it's so much fun. I know it sounds scary to just unravel the length of a whole scarf. It's not. It works just fine. Like, follow the instruction. Your knitting is not going to unravel at all, and like not more than what you want it to. And it's really fun. It takes a while because it's a long scarf, and also because it's mohair, which is very grippy, and Lettlopi unspun, which is also quite grippy. So when you go to unravel it and get the strands kind of stick together. So I had to go with a bit of a crochet hook sometimes and just like sort of pull in between each strand to really detach them. So I was sure that I was picking enough strands, like the right amount of strands to create the braid every time. But you just like, I guess the trickiest part is to find a surface that's big enough to do that, to lay your scarf flat. But it's the matter of an evening, and you just sit down and watch TV and have a cup of tea and do pretty braids. So, and the result is really lovely. So yeah, I really love it. And yeah, I really liked knitting with Lettlopi. I knit once before with unspun, and that was the U.S. wool unspun. And yes, it's obviously more fragile than spun yarn, but it was fine. And I found that the Lettlopi was fine as well. My next two projects are also knit with unspun of two different brands. One is the Hillesvåg unspun, and the other one is Manchalopi. And I would say that by far the Lettlopi is the least fragile of them all. And I was only holding one strand. So yes, I was holding it with mohair, but I was just getting one strand. And I don't remember really it ever breaking from the cake or anything. So, and if it does, it's easy to piece back together. But yeah, it's not, maybe it's a bit of an adjustment for the first couple of rows where you get like your yarn management sorted, but it's kind of the same if you knit with woolly wool and then you go with the merino and then you go with the silk, like the yarn is more slippery, or you're always adjusting to the yarn that you're using. So yeah, to me it was not a big deal. It's fine. Like, Lettlopi is absolutely fine. I don't find it so fragile that it makes it difficult to knit with. So yeah, this is very nice. It actually goes quite nice with the book club as well, but yeah, I love it. I can't wait for it to get much colder so I can wear it, because it is cold now, but it's not that cold, or not cold enough. Well, the only thing that I'm remembering, the only thing about this pattern is that the increases and where there's a bit of, the rows where there's a bit of action are always the wrong side rows, and then the right side rows, you just knit them. So the pattern is fully written, but also charted. So I chose to follow the charts because that was easier for me. And the charts only shows the wrong side rows, right? because all the right side rows were knitted, and so it would have made like a silly, really long chart that it wasn't needed. But because I knew that the chart was the wrong side rows, I read it as if reading the wrong side on any other chart. So I read it from left to right, and where actually you were supposed to read it from like right to left, like you would a chart, like a normal chart, I guess. So it didn't make much of a difference. I think if anything, while I was knitting, my scarf was mirrored, but it honestly doesn't matter. So yeah, as long as you read in the same direction all the time, you're good. So yeah, very pleased with that. And that is my Bakker scarf. I don't know how many people, I feel like I see on Ravelry there's 51 projects, which is not a ton, but it is a really lovely scarf. So I would highly recommend knitting one, and it's incredibly warm. So yeah, all right, that is all my finished objects. Let's have a sip of tea and move on to works in progress. My first one is, I'm just pulling up my Ravelry page, is another scarf, kind of similar to what I just made, because I was so happy with my Bakker scarf, and I enjoyed the process so much that I felt like I wanted to cast on something else similar right away. And I thought that I wanted something light gray to wear in winter. I find that in winter I'm more drawn to wearing grays and blue kind of colors, whereas in the autumn the dark green that I just showed you, like I would probably wear that more in the autumn. Obviously I'm not gonna prevent myself from, or like forbid myself from wearing it in winter, but it's more an autumnal color, and I wanted something similar in a nice light gray for winter. And so what I decided to make was the Autumn Tales Shawl by Ozetta. And it's kind of like, it's quite similar to the what was it called? Is it the penny? The penny scarf? The penny? Oh, it doesn't sound right. I don't remember. The Petite knit one that everyone has made, like the mini scarf, and then it has the shawl. I don't remember, but it's a big garter scarf, but then it has a really nice crocheted braid all around the edges. So this is what I'm making, and I am making it, so here it is. Because it's in an unspun yarn, I'm keeping it in a tray rather than in a project bag, just so that it doesn't break. And this is made in the Hillesvåg unspun in the shade light gray. I remember seeing this yarn when I was in Oslo last year and really loving it. It's so nice and soft, but it's also massive. Like, see the size of that cake? And I had 225 grams, and I have 75 grams in here, so you can imagine how much bigger it was to start with. And I just didn't have the space in my suitcase at the time to bring it back. But by some weird coincidence, I found one store in the UK who stocked it, and I think it comes in 3 or 4 natural colors, and they only had the light gray left in stock, which was great because that's exactly the one that I wanted. And it was so cheap. I think it was £13 plus maybe like £4 of shipping, which is fair enough for, that amount of yarn. And yeah, this is where I am at in my shawl. So basically you do, sorry for the needles clinking, a triangle bit like this, and then you go straight for a while, and then you decrease, so you like kind of reverse the triangle, and that's that. So I've just finished that first triangle. Now I'm starting the straight part, and yeah, it's going really well. It's very pleasant. It's very mindless. You just have to do one increase on one edge every 4 rows, I think, and Ozetta in the pattern gives you a really nice trick to know when it's time to do your increase without having to put stitch markers all along the way all the time. So that's really fun. And yeah, there's one slip stitch on either edge, which makes a nice I don't know if I can show you. So it makes a nice braid kind of thing, which will make it quite easy to crochet, like you crochet onto that later to make the braid. You do that at the end. And so that's gonna make it very easy. I just realized I missed one here, but I must have knit all the way to the end and forgot to slip a stitch, but that is fine. It's not a big deal. And yeah, it's a really, really lovely color. It's the perfect light gray. It is very soft. I would say that this Hillesvåg unspun is much softer than the Lettlopi. It's Norwegian wool, which you might think is not the softest thing in the world, but in this case it's very soft. And it is also the most fragile of the unspun that I've ever used. It does break quite easily. I have to be very careful, but you know, once you know, and so you know how to manage it. So it's definitely not something that would put me off using it again. Absolutely not. I'm just saying out of all the ones that I've tried, it is the most fragile. I haven't tried knitted in, which I hear is quite fragile as well, but yeah. My only thing with this one is that so when I bought it on the website, it said that it was going to be between 200 and 250 grams, and that should be about 900 meters of yarn. And I was like, oh, that's great, that's plenty. But then the pattern asks for, let me see how much the pattern requires. About 600 meters of yarn. And so I was like, and then on another website, sorry, I'm getting to the point. And then on the Hillesvåg website, it said that this cake was 380 meters. And I was like, how is it 900 in one place and 380 in another place? It comes double-stranded in the cake, and I'm using it that way. So even if it was the two strands separately would make 900 meters, that would still mean that when they're double-stranded, I would have 450 meters, which is not the 600 meters that the pattern suggests. The pattern says to use unspun, and it says to use Lettlopi. And so I was like, ooh, I don't know if I'm going to have enough. Yeah, I had a bit of a panic moment. But it's okay. What I'm doing right now is that I'm weighing my yarn frequently. I'm also way off gauge. I will say that. I'm also way off gauge, which is fine. So I'm using, instead of using the stitch counts, I'm using measurements because she provides both in the pattern. And I'm weighing my yarn. So yeah, I'll see as I go. I've weighed the first part that I've just shown you, which is good because I know that I need to have at least that amount of yarn left to make the second pointy bit on the other side. And then I'll see how I manage the middle part. I think I'm gonna have enough yarn, but yeah, I'm just keeping a track of that. I'm really keeping, I'm weighing my yarn quite often. And my only thing is that the braid that you do around the border, you only do it at the end, and the pattern doesn't really say, obviously, how much yarn you need for that, like how, and the weight of Lettlopi is different from the weight of the Hillesvåg and things like that. So I don't know how much yarn I need to save for the braid. So I don't know. I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna keep on knitting. Right now I'm gonna knit to half of the straight middle section and see where I'm at in my yarn. Have I used half? I don't think I'm gonna have used more than half of my yarn, but I want to see how close to half of my yarn I will have used, and then decide based on that if I feel like I might have enough yarn for the braid around. Otherwise, I have these two little cakes of used wool unspun that I used in the past. It's leftovers. It's not exactly the same shade of gray. It's a little bit warmer than the other yarn, but not by much, and they definitely go well together. And honestly, I don't know if you would notice the difference. So I think that if worse come to worse, I will use that to do the braid, and that will work just fine. So yeah, that's my plan. I'll keep you posted on how that goes, but yeah, the pattern is very enjoyable. It's very mindless. It's garter stitch with an increase every now and then. So yeah, although I have to say, and maybe you feel the same, I don't find garter stitch as mindless as stockinette, or especially stockinette in the round, because I find that maybe it's just the way I hold my needles or I grab my stitches, but I tend to, if I don't pay attention, I tend to grab or like to pick the bump of the stitch below when I try to knit. And yeah, so I have to pay a bit more attention when I knit garter stitch than when I knit stockinette in the round. I have to look a bit more often, but yeah, I don't know. Do you feel the same? Does that happen to you as well? Is it just me? Yeah. Anyway, that's all I have to say about this shawl. I'm really enjoying knitting it. I'm really excited to have it for winter, and I'm thinking of, I have some really nice dark blue yarn that I'm planning to make a hiedra headband and mittens with, and I think that will be so nice for winter to have the matching mittens, like dark blue mittens and headband, and then this big light gray scarf. I think it will look very nice, so I'm very excited about that. But yeah, so that's my first work in progress. Second work in progress is a garment, and it is once again knit in unspun, and this time it is knit in Lettlopi, which you can actually see some up here. And what I am making is the Miles shirt jacket by Ozetta. Once again, I'm a bit on an Ozetta unspun yarn kick at the moment, if you can't tell. And yeah, so like I said, I'm using Lettlopi for it. Let me just pull up the Ravelry page so I have my notes. Okay, I didn't really write any notes, so because I'm not too far in, but yeah, so it is a lovely shirt jacket, so kind of long with rounded hem, you know, like you would have on a shirt, and pockets, and yeah, and I've been wanting to make this for so long. So when the pattern came out, I was a bit ambivalent about it. I wasn't really sure that I liked it that much. But then I've seen people make it, and then I think recently Inga of Knitting Traditions made it, and I was like, you know what, this is quite nice actually. So ever since I've been like, oh, I really, really want to make one. And so now I'm making one, but there's been so much drama. So get ready, you know, grab your tea and everything. The drama. So I had this dark, beautiful dark brown undyed Aran yarn, 600 grams of it, from New Lanark, which is a mill not too far from me in Scotland. And I was like, this is going to be the perfect yarn for the Miles shirt jacket. It's going to look so good. I'm so excited. I've been wanting to use this yarn for so long. I couldn't figure out what to make with it. It's going to be perfect. I had bought this yarn in a bargain bin, so it just had a tag on it that says Aran 600 grams. I was like, perfect. I looked at their website where they sell yarn with labels, and their Aran was 160 meters, I think, per 100 grams or something. Anyway, it seemed to me that it was going to work. I start swatching on the recommended needles, and I cannot get gauge. I swear to you, for the life of me, I could not get gauge. And so I keep going down a needle size, and I still can't really get gauge. And it's hard to knit because it's thick yarn on small needles. And then I also could not get it to not row out really badly. My tension is not exactly the same for purling and knitting, but it's not so bad that the rowing out is so obvious to the point where it's just not okay. And I couldn't get it. It didn't work. Like, I was so frustrated. I'd been looking forward to this project for so long, and I was really frustrated and really sad. And then so then I was like, okay, I have two options. Either I want to make this pattern and I need to find another yarn, or I want to use this yarn and I need to find another pattern. And because I had this yarn in my stash for so long and struggled to find something to make with it, I was like, okay, I'm going to look for another pattern to use with this yarn. I ended up picking the old-fashioned cardigan pattern by Max the Knitter, and I decided that I would turn it into a jacket. So it's a really nice cardigan with the same texture as the single malt. It's basically the cardigan version of the single malt, if you know it, and it had like a nice kind of tall neck collar, which is the same as the Miles shirt jacket, and it had like, it doesn't have fastenings, it has button bands but not buttons or anything, but I was like, this is fine, I can add buttons or I can add a zipper, it's going to be great. And I'm just going to make that pattern and then do still the rounded edge of the Miles shirt jacket, just, you know, wing it, and then if I have enough yarn left, I'll also make pockets. So I was like, great, I starch, I get gauge, wonderful. And I start knitting, and then I'm just like running through, like going through this yarn so fast. And I knit the yoke and the collar, and there's just, I'm like, there's no way I have enough yarn to make a long jacket like this. There's just no way. So, you know, I was like, it's okay, it's all right, we're gonna adjust and adapt. And I thought instead of making a long jacket, I would make more of a short jacket, a bit like a bomber jacket. I think it would work really great with this lovely texture and everything. Great, happy again, we keep knitting. And I finish the yoke and I start picking up for a sleeve, and I'm halfway down one sleeve and I have barely any yarn left, and I still need to finish that sleeve, make the other sleeve, finish the body, and do the button bands. And I'm like, there's just no way. There's no way I have enough yarn, but I had 600 grams of Aran, which is more than enough in my size to make a jacket, even with a bit of texture. I was like, what happened? And then, yeah. And then I lost it. I was like crying because I was like, why is it not working? I don't understand. And yeah, so I just since put this yarn aside. I do not want to see it. It's in the naughty corner. I don't know how long it's going to stay there, but right now I don't want to see it. In hindsight, I think what happened is that I think the yarn was mislabeled, and it wasn't 600 grams of Aran that I had, but 600 grams of chunky, which meant a lot less meterage, which is why it wasn't working. So yeah, I think that's the problem. So anyway, I still like the idea of my bomber jacket, or like a jacket adaptation of that cardigan, so I might make it in the future with some of the yarn. But yeah, oh my god, it was so sad. And I was just like, I'm really good at solving problems. I'm also terrible when I can't find a solution. I fall apart very quickly. And it turned out that in this case, it was just, I don't think it was my fault. I think the yarn was really mislabeled. But yeah, it was a very emotional ride. In the end, I had a good think, and I decided that what I really wanted, actually, what I've been really looking forward to, was the Miles shirt jacket. And so I should make that, and I should get yarn for that. And I got the yarn recommended in the pattern, which is Lettlopi, like I mentioned before. And I've been knitting on it since, and it's been wonderful. So yeah, I guess the lessons here is that I should not have been cheap in the first place and just bought new yarn. But yeah, lesson learned. Especially also because Lettlopi is quite cheap. I needed 5 plates, and I think the plates are 8 or 9 pounds. So it's really not, it would be like what, like 8 times 5, yeah, it's like 40 pounds for a whole garment. It's just like, I should just have bought it in the first place and not try to be over smart. I don't know. It was so much drama. Anyway, we are now back on track, and we are now knitting the Miles shirt jacket in Lettlopi, the recommended yarn, and it is going wonderfully. So I'm going to show you. I started by making the pockets, which is what is recommended. Basically, Ozetta tells you to use the pocket as a swatch. So you start knitting a pocket, and that's going to be your swatch. I went down a full needle size. I think she recommends 6mm needles. I went down to 5 because I knew from the Autumn Tales shawl, the gray shawl that I just showed you, that my gauge using the recommended needles is very different from hers. So I used that to guess that I needed to go down, and it was right. Like 5mm is what allowed me to get gauge. So it's kind of funny because Lettlopi, I'd never worked with it before. It's unspun, it's a bit fragile. And so I think, let me see. I think this was my swatch and my first experience of knitting with it. And I had almost gauge on that. I was off by half a stitch, so I decided to just leave it. And yeah, and then that is my other swatch, so I'm getting a bit used, my other pocket that I made right after. So I was getting more used and relaxing a bit more. So this one I think is slightly looser. It doesn't show very much, but I think it's a bit slightly looser and it's also a bit bumpier. But that's okay. And now I am working on the garment itself. So this is what I have so far. I just basically joined under the arms last night. So this is the front and this is the back. And now I've got fluff. And now because I'm getting more used to knitting with it, I found the right tension, and so I'm bang on gauge now, which is great. But yeah, and I'm really loving it. It's really, really nice to knit with. It's so light, so warm, and it's not that fragile. I think the only time I broke it is because I sat on it, so, but yeah, and it's very lovely. I'm going to show you just a cake of yarn. It's like a brown gray color. It's undyed, and I think it's called like dark brown gray or something. And I'm really, really enjoying knitting with it. So yeah, I like the detail as well at the back. I don't know if you can see it. Yeah, that is quite nice. And yeah, so you start with the back. I mean, it's a very basic drop shoulder construction. So you start at the back panel and then you do the two front panels and then you join under the arms and and you keep going. And so let me have a sip because my throat is getting dry. And so yeah, so the way I usually like to knit my garments is that I knit the yoke or the top to the underarm and then knit a little bit under the arm, and then I like to go and do the collar when it's possible because the collar is gonna have an impact on how long your sleeves are gonna be, or you're gonna want them to be. And so I like to do that, and then I like to pick up for the sleeves and do the sleeves before I finish the body. The thing is with this one, I can't really do that because I do want to do the collar before I make the sleeves, but you need to do the button bands in order to be able to do the collar, because you knit the button bands up and then the stitches at the end of the button bands you need to pick them up as well to do your collar. So I'm just going to finish the body and do the button bands, do the collar, and then have the sleeves for last. That's fine. Like it's okay. It's not my preferred way of doing it, but it's not a deal breaker. I also the rounded edge, the rounded hem, I find it in the picture a little bit deep for my liking. So I need to have a careful look at the pattern and see exactly how it's made and see how I can modify that. It's made using short rows, so it might just be a matter of me knitting straight a little bit longer and then in the end not making as many short rows, but I need to have a good look at that. And yeah, and then one last thing that might be of interest to you maybe is that all the bind off are tubular bind off, and I usually just do on 1x1 rib, and I usually just go in straight. I do my 1x1 rib and then get my sewing needle, darning needle, and I just do a sewn bind off like this. I don't do the 2 setup rows. In this instance though, I tried it on the pockets and I think the setup rows have their place in my opinion, just because of the nature of unspun. Your ribbing is not bouncing, it's not coming back, it's not really cinching back in the way it does with spun yarn. And I think having those 2 setup rows at your ribbing really give it structure and bring it in a bit. So I'm gonna keep doing this for this pattern, even though it's something that I don't usually do. And then if you're wondering how the sewn bit of the bind off goes with unspun. To be fair, it has worked well. I followed the advice of, I don't remember her name, of the Knit and Grace podcast. She has a tutorial where like she shows a little video on how to do a sewn bind off with unspun yarn, which is really great. Which is basically, I'll link it below, but basically I'm knitting with 2 strands. Lettlopi comes with 2 strands, or double stranded already in the cake anyway. So I'm knitting with those 2 strands, and so basically you do a small bit, like you don't get the whole length of your bind off like you would on a regular bind off. You just do it by small chunks. You felt that bit, and then it sews just fine. Like you can use the needle just fine. Just don't pull like crazy, but it works just fine. And then when you don't have a lot of yarn left, you just like rub and split splice another length, and then you keep going, and yeah, it works just fine. But I will link her video. Sorry, I will link her video down below. All right. And now moving on to my last work in progress, which is much simpler than everything that I've talked to you about up until now. And it's just a simple pair of socks. So I'm holding it in this really lovely project bag, which I bought from the lovely Emma of Eldenwood Craft. And yes, I love it. It's beautiful canvas. I feel like because I'm no longer making bags now, I can treat myself to project bags, if that makes sense. And I was looking for a nice sturdy bag that I could use for when I bring my knitting out and about. My preferred, like my main project bag that I use all the time are the 2 that you see here, but because the bottom is tweed, I'm more worried of it getting stained or it just catching all the dust and all the things. So I wanted something a bit different to take out and about, and this is perfect. So loving it. And the socks that I'm making are, sorry for the noise of paper, let me grab it, are just not a pattern, just me doing my own thing. It's going to be a vanilla sock, but I'm adding stripes at the top. I think you can see it fine now. It's not the highest contrast, but it works, I think. And I will use the yellow for the toe and maybe the heel. I haven't decided. And the yarn I'm using is a sock set from Woolly Mammoth Fiber Co. in her Hearth sock base, which is really pretty. It's this like dark red kind of color, and it came with that yellow. So together they're not high contrast. I tried using it at first for a colorwork sock, and it just didn't work because you couldn't see the colorwork. But I think it works great with the stripes. Yeah. And so I work them in tandem the way I always do. So I pull the outside and the inside of my main ball. And so I have a sock 1, I am almost done with the leg. And then sock 2, I have just finished the stripes. So I need to keep going. And I'm doing 64 stitches. And because it's a natural sock yarn, so no nylon on superwash sock yarn, it's slightly thicker than your normal 75-25 merino nylon yarn. And so I use 2.25 millimeter needles to really make it dense. Otherwise I would use a 2.5. But yeah, when I use natural sock yarns, I use a 2.25 millimeter needle on my tiny circulars. Just your basic sock. Very enjoyable. I like it a lot. The only thing that I would say, and the reason why you heard a bit of plastic rustling before, is because I am keeping this yarn in a plastic bag in my project bag, because the dye comes off on my finger a bit when I knit with it. Nothing bad and nothing that is surprising for a naturally dyed yarn. That happens like with reds and blues. It happens like often. That's okay. But I don't want to risk it staining the inside of my new bag if it stays in there too long, or if it rubs, or if I have it in my backpack and yeah, it really rubs against the bag. So I'm just keeping it in a plastic bag for now. And yeah, I'll be careful when I wash it. I think first of all, I will wash it on its own to start. And then maybe for the first, like the next few times, I'll put a color catcher sheet in the wash with it, just in case, just to make sure that the red dye is done bleeding a bit. But yeah, that's really all I have to say about this project. It's really nice. I'm enjoying it. It's easy to take out and about, and I really enjoy actually I wear all my socks, but I do enjoy my natural sock yarn socks. I find them a bit warmer, so when it's really, really cold, I do enjoy them more. But when it's not as cold, I do like my superwash ones. So, there's a bit of everything. So, yeah. I am now going to move on to acquisition. I feel like I've already talked quite a bit, and also feel like I'm talking fast, so I hope it's okay. But yeah, I'm just going to go. I have a bunch of acquisition. It's been a couple of months since my last podcast. Slow down. Since my last podcast. And so yeah, I have a few acquisitions, more than I would expect, because I don't buy a ton of yarn, but yeah, I don't know. I like it. It's fun. And yeah. So the first one, keeping on with my Ozetta phase, I guess. She has recently released the port jacket, which is beautiful. I love it. I also feel like I want to make all the jackets at the moment. It's jackets and cardigan is all that I'm interested in, it seems. And yeah, the pattern was released and it's beautiful and I want to make it, and it's knit in Lettlopi, and I know that Lettlopi tends to sell it quickly and then it takes a while for it to come back. So I was like, I need to get the yarn. And so I ordered the yarn that I needed for it, even though I'm not going to cast it right away. And I got it from Wool Warehouse, and it is this yarn. It is the light gray, I want to say. It is lovely. I think it is the light gray. It is the same one as Ozetta uses in her version, in her sample. So I love it. I was hesitating between a light gray and a beige, but I think the beige that I would have wanted was out of stock, and the other beige was a bit too yellow, and so I decided to go for the gray. And yeah, I've never used Lettlopi before. It looks like a single ply kind of thing. I hear it's also quite itchy. I don't feel it so much. I think it's great for a jacket. I'm not gonna yeah, it's gonna be perfect. So yeah, I got 11 balls of that because that's what I need for the size that I want to make. It's also very cheap. I think it's like between £3.50 and £4 a ball on Wool Warehouse. So so I got that. I got 11 balls of that. And then I got, let me grab it. This little basket. We're doing a lot of grays these days. So I was listening to the Stitches and Cream podcast, which is attached to the Stitches and Cream yarn store in Falmouth in Cornwall. I really love this podcast. It's the person who does it is Jane. She runs the shop, and she's really, really lovely. And yeah, I really, really love this podcast, and I would highly recommend it, and I'm going to link it down below. And she was mentioning in one of her episodes a sock yarn from a brand called Bakker, or Bakker yarn, which I have used before, but I wasn't aware that they were making sock yarn. And this one is I guess it's not a sock yarn, but it's yarn that can be used for socks. And this one is a blend of new wool or of like British wool, I don't remember exactly what blend, and bamboo, which I think is really fun. And it's not a blend that I have in my collection of natural sock yarn, so I was keen to try it. It's called Bamboozle. And then when I went to the Stitches and Cream website to order it, I couldn't find it there. And I don't know if it's because it's sold out or if because they hadn't put it on the website yet or anything, but anyway, I ended up just buying it from Bakker Yarns directly because they're also in the UK. And I got this very interesting gray color. So it looks quite warm on the screen. It's more like a almost blue kind of gray, but I really like it. And it comes in 50-gram skeins. So I got 2. So I'm very pleased with that. I'm gonna try it and make socks with it eventually. It's quite drapey, so I'm gonna have to be mindful about the kind of pattern that I choose, but yeah, looking forward to that. And then I was on the Bakker yarn website, and they're really they really value and promote and do amazing work to celebrate British breeds and rare breeds. And so they don't always have all of the same yarn, but they do, they bring in smaller batches of very special rare breeds. And we went down that rabbit hole. I am a sucker for that kind of thing, and so they had me really when I looked, and I found this gorgeous yarn. It's North Ronaldsay, which is a sheep specific to Orkney, which is islands in the north of Scotland, and it is undyed. It's a limited edition. It's a DK yarn, and it is this beautiful gray. So it's overall gray. It definitely shows gray, but it has a bit of brown in it, which makes it quite a nice warm gray, I guess, warm gray color. So I got 6 balls of this. It is a DK 110 meters per 50 grams. And yeah, it is so beautiful. This one is, I wouldn't say itchy, but it is definitely prickly. And I mean, like when you look at the climate and what the poor sheep have to put up with on Orkney, you understand why they need like proper wool. And yeah, I love it so much. And what I would like to make with this, so I bought 6, so I have 300 grams. What I would like to make with this is the Pelica Vest or gilet or whatever you want to call it by Rosa Pomar, and I'll put a picture on the screen. I've been wanting one of these for so long, and I have no idea how I would wear that. I have absolutely no idea how I would style it, but I'm hoping that by the time I knit it, I will have found an idea. I will have had an idea. I will have, yeah, I would have had a little light bulb moment of like, oh, this is how you can wear it. And yeah, but very pleased with this purchase. I have 2 more acquisitions. The next one is this very interesting yarn. This is the Isager Japansk Bomuld, so it's like Japanese cotton. And I bought this. I have 3 balls of this. And the reason I bought this is because I would like to make a Florence bag. I think it's been quite a popular pattern over the summer. It's by Petite. And my idea was that like I really wanted to make one. I have a wedding next summer that I could see myself, wanting to have a little bag like that for, and just to have a nice cute handbag for just to have really. And I didn't see myself knitting it right away, but I was a bit worried because I was really struggling to find this color on pretty much all the websites that sell that yarn in the UK. And so when I found a website that had some in stock still, I just decided to grab it, and I'll knit it when I knit it. But I really, I think it's the most neutral of the colors that they have, the most sort of like natural looking. And that's what Petite Knit used in one of her samples. I think it's Jess of those twins who knits. She also made one in that color. I think a lot of people made it in that specific color, and so obviously it went out of stock faster than the other colors. So yeah, when I found a website that still had some in stock in that specific color, I decided to buy it. If you're curious, this is color 59. So yeah, I know in some places you can buy the lining, the zipper, and the leather strap. I didn't buy any of that. The lining, usually I've knit other Petite Knit bags before, and there's sewing instructions, so I can just use fabric that I've got at home. And then a zipper I can find in the store. And then the leather strap, either I will order this one specifically at some point. I don't think that's the kind of thing that would be out of stock as quickly, or it's easy to find in haberdasheries or even on Etsy or somewhere to find a bit of leather, like a leather strap that you can just cut to the sizes you want. So yeah, I'm not too concerned about that, but I was a bit worried about, sorry, I just kicked the desk. I was a bit worried about this specific yarn in this specific color being difficult to find in the future when I needed or decided to knit with it, so I decided to buy it now. And then my very last acquisition, I didn't pay for it. It is a friend of mine. I had made her a pair of DK socks a while back, a couple of years ago. And she said that when she travels down to visit her family, she usually brings them and use them as slippers. And her mom noticed them recently and asked if I would knit a pair that her mom could gift to the partner of one of her sons. So I guess like my friend's brother's partner, whatever. Anyway, to give to another woman in the family. And I was like, yeah, of course, absolutely, no problem. A DK sock, like I don't do commissions and things like that, but for a good friend, a pair of DK socks is absolutely fine. It goes really quickly. It's for Christmas. I've got plenty of time, so I was like, sure, no problem. What color are we talking about? And apparently this person likes really, really bright colors, like much brighter than I would. And so I had nothing. I have a little box of yarn that I have to use for gifts. So things that I've bought in the past are not really to my taste anymore in terms of color usually. And so that I keep aside to make gift knits. And I was like, well, have a look in there. If you find anything, we can use that. None of it was bright enough. And so we decided to go and buy yarn. We went to Ginger Twist, which is my local yarn shop. And yeah, like, she's not kidding when she says that we're doing something bright. So, I'm going to show you the yarn. You might want to wear sunglasses for that. But yeah, here we go. It's so bright. I honestly, I love it. I would never knit anything for me in that yarn. I would probably never wear anything that bright, but I'm really excited to knit with it because it's just so fun. And so the reason I've got two is that I'm going to make, like I said, DK socks. I usually, I'm going to do that by holding a fingering weight yarn double. The sock yarn by Ginger Twist, that's their own hand dyed, by the way, is 365 meters. With a normal sock yarn at 400 meters per 100 grams, I can make a pair of socks that's up to a size 7, I would say. If I made any bigger than that, I think I would need more yarn. And the person in question is a size 9, so I definitely would need more than 100 grams. So what we decided to do is that she likes orange and pink. So I'm going to make the sock in this really bright orange. This is the shade, so both of them are the Ginger's hand-dyed sheepish sock. It is 80% superwash BFL and 20% nylon. This is the shade Melon Balls on Fire. It's very pretty. So I'm going to make the sock in that, and then I think I'm going to make the cuff and the toe, probably in the pink. So they're going to be together. And the pink is called Design of a Decade. It's very bright pink. And the thing is that if I use most of the orange and a little bit of the pink, I anticipate that I might have somewhere maybe 80 grams of the pink left in the end. And with whatever I have left of the pink, I will make a pair of socks for my friend. Which also doesn't wear that much bright color, but she said that she said it'd be fun to have a bright pink pair of socks, and I think she wears them at home anyway. So yeah, I'm gonna do, I think if I do just the cuff and the toe in the contrast, I have enough of 100 grams to do the rest. And yeah, and I feel like I'm gonna knit them in tandem, and then if I feel like I'm kind of running short of the orange before too soon to start the toe, I might just make just before the toe a stripe of the pink and then a tiny bit of orange again and then the toe or something. And then with what I have left, I'll make another pair of socks. Depending on how much I've left, I'll just make a regular pair of socks, or I'll make a shorty pair of socks, or we'll see. But yeah, it's gonna be really fun. It is very bright. It is so bright, but I kind of love it. I'm looking forward to knitting with it. Because yeah, this is not something I would do for myself, so yeah, very excited. So yeah, that's all my acquisitions. It's gonna be a long episode, guys. It's 1 hour 15 already on my timer right now, but I'm gonna keep going, and if you don't want to watch to the end, that's absolutely fine. Or if you want to watch it in installments, that's fine too. I'm gonna move on to the last section of my podcast, which is what I've been reading lately. And like I said before, I started this in my last episode, and I was explaining that I really enjoyed reading cozy murder mysteries. And you guys recommended me so many books and so many book series. It's amazing. Thank you so, so much. My Goodreads has grown exponentially, and I've read a couple books that you have recommended and really enjoyed them. So yeah, thank you. Keep the recommendations coming. It was amazing. And if you are also into those kinds of books, then please go back to the previous video and look through the comments at what people have recommended, and if you're looking for some book ideas. But yeah, the last time I was reading Times Convert by Deborah Harkness, which is like, I guess, my second favorite kind of books. It's a bit of like magic fantasy kind of thing. And so yeah, I was reading Times Convert, which is the fourth book in like the All Souls universe, I guess, by Deborah Harkness, and I really enjoyed it. It's very different from the first three books, which are really written as a trilogy, but it's more, and it's got adventure, right? The first three books have lots of adventures and drama and things like that. This one was more kind of like going with the flow of the lives of the people, of the characters involved, and it was very different, but I really, really enjoyed it. And I would definitely recommend it. I have since then, Deborah Harkness has released a fifth book in the series, which I think is called Blackbird Oracle. I haven't read it yet, but it's definitely on my list for this autumn. And the author came to Edinburgh I guess she's touring and promoting her book right now. And so I got to go to the event. It was organized by my local bookstore, and to listen to her talk about the books and answer questions and sort of like talk about what's coming up. Guys, the one that came out is book 5. And I have to say that the All Souls trilogy, the first three books, are probably my favorite books of all time. So really excited for me to be able to listen to her and all that. And the book that just came out is book number 5 in this universe series, whatever. There's 5 more. She's got 10 books in the works, or like in the plan. And I am so excited for it. I am so there for it. So yes, that book was really nice. Afterwards, I read 2 books that you recommended, which are cozy murder mysteries with a bit of a historical twist on it. So the first one was Maisie, Dobbs by Jacqueline Winspear. I'll put the covers of the book on the screen. I'm not going to show them to you because I read pretty much exclusively on an e-reader, so I'm not going to just show you my e-reader. It's kind of silly, so I'll show you the pretty covers on the screen. So one is called Maisie, Dobbs by Jacqueline Winspear. One of you recommended it. It's the first one in a series. I think there's maybe like 18 now. She keeps on writing them, and it was really, really good. It's set in between the 2 wars, if I'm not mistaken, the 2 world wars. And this one had a bit of flashback going back during the First World War, and I thought it was really nice. The intrigue was good, the mystery was good, and I think it did a really good job at sort of setting things for the rest of the series, like who the characters are and what their world is and all that. So I really enjoyed it, and I'm definitely going to keep on reading that series. And then after that, I read The Benevolent Society of Ill-Mannered Ladies by Alison Goodman, and I had never heard of this before. And then one of you posted in the comment, and I read the title, and I was like, this sounds really fun. So I read that, and it is really fun. Same thing, it's a murder, a mystery, like a adventure mystery kind of thing. And it's not so much like a murder mystery with a detective, but there's adventures and people to save and mysteries to solve. And I think it's set in the British Georgian era. And yeah, it's very fun. The main 2 characters are 2 sisters who are like 40 something and unmarried, so spinsters in those times, and who don't abide by, I guess, the constraint and the rules of the society they live in, and go on adventures. And yeah, it was really fun. It was really good, really fun. It was nice also because I don't think it was a big book, but it had, so there was like a story, the character development and the stories of the character and their relationship goes through the whole book, but then there's 3 specific adventures that they go on to. So yeah, it's almost like a mix of like a novel and then short stories in the same in the same book kind of thing. But it was really enjoyable, and there's a second book coming out next year, which I will definitely read. And then now I am on to I'm about halfway through We Solve Murders by Richard Osman, which is the new Richard Osman that just came out. I am a big fan of the Thursday Murder Club series, which he's been writing for the past 4 years. I think there's 4 books, but this year he decided to take a break and start a new series, and then I think next year we're going back to Thursday Murder Club. So yeah, so I'm really excited. I was really excited to read the new book. I wasn't sad at all that he wasn't releasing a Thursday Murder Club this year, because it's not the end. It's going to come next year, and this new one is hilarious. It is perfect cozy murder mystery, a lot of humor, and we went in August, was the book festival, in the International Book Festival or something in Edinburgh, and he was here and he was having like a conversation with Ian Rankin, which is a famous like thriller detective author in Scotland and in Edinburgh, and yeah, Richard Osman was here talking about his new book and about his process as a writer and all of that, and it was so good. He's hilarious. He's a very funny guy, and the new book is really good. So yeah, I'm halfway through. I'm enjoying it thoroughly. It's the kind of book that you chuckle when you read, and Kyle, my husband, is reading it as well. So we always do that with the Richard Osman books in September, where he goes and buy like a hard copy, and then I get the digital one on my e-reader, and we read it together. Or I mean, we start it together. He reads much faster than I do. So, but yeah, it's something that we do, and we enjoy it. And this book is really funny. So I would, if you like the Thursday Murder Club, you're definitely going to like this. If you haven't read the Thursday Murder Club or this, then you should, because it's good. So yes. All right, I think that's gonna be the end of the podcast then. It's quite long, so yeah, I'm gonna wrap up here. Thank you so much for watching. I'm gonna try, I always say that, but I'm really gonna try not to let as much time go in between podcasts. I've got a few things happening in October. I've got my sister visiting for a few days, so that'll be nice. And then at the end of October, I'm going on a little trip to Oxford, which I'm really excited about and which I intend to vlog. So hopefully that works out. Hopefully nothing happens that prevents me from doing it. But yeah, I'm hoping to vlog that trip and be able to share it with you. So yeah, and then, work is the same. Work is very, very busy, which I'm grateful, a bit overwhelmed sometimes, but we're grateful. And yeah, it's the autumn. Autumn is always busy. And then before we know it, it's gonna be Christmas time or December and the run up to Christmas, and then I'm taking proper time off at Christmas break. I'm taking about 2 weeks, which I really need. I'm getting quite tired, but I'm looking forward to that. And until then, I'm looking forward to the few trips that I've got and some lovely autumn days and some nice cozy knitting. And yeah, thank you again so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.